Let's take the discussion forward with Teamlease Services joining us now on the show to talk about earnings and obviously budget expectations also. Ramani, before we talk about earnings and the company, I want to talk to you about one particular point which is being time and again being brought about in our discussions with policymakers, with large stakeholders in the economy, and that is tremendous amount of good work being done by the leadership, various state governments as well as the current government, as far as reforms, infrastructure, all of manufacturing, all of that is concerned. But one area where it appears to be work in progress and a lot of room and scope for more work which appears to be required is job creation. And we keep discussing that jobs of tomorrow cannot have skill sets of yesterday. In your view, what more further policy work can be done so that mass, volume of job creation can be done, in your thoughts?
Sure. So, in our view, India doesn't have a jobs problem. We have a formal jobs problem because anyone who is willing to take up a job at 5,000 rupees, 8,000 rupees, yes, definitely there is a job. But are they getting the right jobs, the right wages with all the benefits, employment benefits and social security benefits? That's the challenge. And over the last few years, the number of jobs that we are creating are not all of them are new jobs. In fact, many of them are transitioning from informal jobs to formal jobs. So we are trying to drive a lot of formalization in the employment sector. And if more policies can be enabling those aspects, that can really help. And in fact, the policymakers are also working in that direction. So over the years, there are many initiatives taken up by the governments, both state and central governments, towards formalization of jobs and more employment creation. But it is taking time. Like to give you an example, manufacturing industry, we all have been expecting a huge employment generation with Make in India initiatives and PIL schemes and all of those. But it's going a little slow on the ground. Maybe with labor codes implementation and other policy changes, we expect in the coming years, we can see the transition of jobs from informal sectors to formal sectors.
That's interesting. Ramani, I also wanted to I remember in the speech last year, the finance minister was talking about upskilling a lot more. There was a lot more focus on skill development. Some hybrid universities, etc. were announced as well. What's your take in this budget? Should we expect something further in that respect, or maybe just increase allocation towards the entire drafting of these policies?
Definitely, yes, because the skill gap is a huge problem, especially in the areas that I mentioned, like manufacturing, engineering. So we are seeing a huge gap in the skill set. The candidates are having maybe the degrees and graduations, but in terms of on the shop floor experience, there is a huge gap in the skill set that is needed. So if the policymakers can come up with some incremental budgets on promoting those skill enhancement schemes, or even promoting online degree with on-the-job work experience credits, that can also help to bridge this gap to some extent.
Ramani, coming to the business now and the bread and butter, IT of course has been weak for a while now, and in fact just this morning we are getting reports that Wipro might be looking at laying off some of the mid-level people as well, and startup has seen a lot of layoffs already. BFSI, which was showing signs of an uptick, is also expected to slow down given the pressure they are feeling on the businesses. Do you think it's at least a 3 to 4 quarter story that we'll continue to see slowdown across IT and BFSI now?
IT definitely yes, because over the last 4 or 5 quarters, there has been a hiring freeze, especially on IT service companies. While GCCs and captive companies are hiring in small numbers, but that is not good enough to offset the headcount drop or hiring freeze that's happening on IT services side. We expect a similar trend might continue on IT services maybe for another 3 or 4 quarters. In terms of green shoots, except for GCCs, we are not seeing any as far as IT is concerned. BFSI this quarter, Q3, is weak because of some kind of restrictions on unsecured loans under 50,000, and also the overall hiring is below what we have expected at the beginning of the quarter. However, Q4, we are seeing good numbers and good pipeline for BFSI. Slightly lower than what we have initially expected, but it is much better than what we have seen in Q3. But other than these two segments, which contribute to roughly about 20% of our total headcount base, rest all other segments are doing very well. So be it consumer, retail vertical, telecom, manufacturing, rest all other verticals, we are seeing very good hiring trends.
Ramani, I want to understand from you when you are talking to HR heads across sectors, which are some of the sectors where there is a lot of demand coming in, not immediately near term, but maybe 2, 3, 4 quarters far out.
Yeah. Telecom, manufacturing, engineering, these are the sectors where we expect a new kind of demand that can come up in maybe after 3 or 4 quarters, like EVs, electronic vehicles, and some of the new age companies. So there can be new job creation. But again, the problem is also skill set gap, how we mobilize the candidates, how we train them, how we do the skill bridging in the next 1 year time frame. So that's also a challenge. So we are working with a program called degree apprenticeship. So wherein the candidates can get on the job training along with undergoing a graduation program with online degrees. So we believe this can be a great product for the manufacturing and engineering segment.
Okay, point taken. So, Ramani, given the context that we have set in terms of how the demand outlook looks like, for FY25 for your company, what kind of volumes you're expecting, what kind of numbers, growth and margins we should anticipate?
Yeah. So this year, 9 months so far, we have added about 35,000 net associates in our general staffing business. And by end of the year, we should be able to have a 20% growth on volume. So we expect that we can maintain a similar growth for next year as well, for FY25 as well. A 20% volume growth and maybe 20 to 25% revenue growth is what we are looking at FY25.
Before we let you go, that was about volume, but what about margins? Do you see that also normalize and rebound in the coming quarters?
Margins in terms of absolute profits, yes, we are very confident of expanding the profits consistently quarter on quarter, and we have been demonstrating that over the last few quarters as well. And we are expecting good growth in operating profits for next year as well. Percentage margin, since we don't have a control on the top line, like at what salary levels we hire the associates, because it depends on the locations that we are hiring, the skills, at what skills we are hiring. So that's a variable which is not in our control. But we have a visibility of expanding the profits sequentially in next year as well.
So have the visibility to expand the profitability. That's the key verdict coming in. Thanks so much, Ramani, for making time and speaking with us. Appreciate you joining us on the show.